In this tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you how to design a cake. Now, there's no right or wrong way of doing this, and you don't have to be a superb artist to be able to do these tasks. Design really is a communication method, so I'm going to be teaching you some of the tools of the trade to help you communicate your design ideas. Now, what you use to actually complete your design ideas is entirely up to you. There are a wide range of different mediums that we can use to complete design ideas. I prefer to draw using a pencil, and then I add colour using watercolour pencils, but you might find that you want to use standard colouring pencils or paints or even crayons. Something that's becoming increasingly popular is drawing electronically as well, and that's absolutely fine if you want to draw on a tablet. Now, the first thing I do is draw the structure of my cake. So you noticed I started by drawing a long skinny oval, two straight lines coming down from either side, and then a half oval at the bottom. And the reason I do this is because then it shows the cake in 3D so that I can show more than one side of it. I'm not just showing the side of the cake or the top of the cake. But if you struggle to do this, what you could do instead is draw the image in 2D so that you show the side of the cake and then do a second drawing that shows a bird's eye view. So if you were drawing a cake in this shape, for example, you would draw a rectangular shape to show the side and then a complete circle to show the bird's eye view. Something I like to do is experiment with colour swatches. So I decide on my colour theme, and for this particular design, you'll notice from the workbook I created a mood board that looked at the jungle and animals within the Amazon. So I've decided for this design to focus my attention on a parrot. So I've picked out the green and red that I noticed in the parrot's feathers, and I've just placed that on my design really to show my inspiration. And the way I've designed my cake is that I would have those combinations of butter icing in the sides, just like we did with the galaxy cake. Now, you can use additional features for your cake as well, and what I've decided to do, and I've seen this done as a collar around a lot of cakes, is using chocolate fingers. So buying pre-made chocolate fingers and then placing them on the sides of the cake. Now, I wouldn't want to completely cover the icing because obviously then I'd lose the colour because you'd only see the chocolate fingers. So I'm going to place them with spaces in between, and my reasoning behind it as well is because I'm focused on looking at the Amazon as inspiration. The chocolate fingers represent tree trunks. So I'm not fussing too much with my design. These are just quick sketches. They don't have to be absolutely stunning pieces of artwork. It is a way of you communicating to me and really to yourself what your design idea might look like. Now, you might want to think about additional ingredients you're going to be using. So obviously I've already said that I'd use chocolate fingers, and here I'm adding pieces of mango. So that would not only add extra colour and texture, but it would also improve the flavour of the cake. And again, it's tied in with my theme because I associate mango with exotic climates like the Amazon. When you're designing to follow a theme, you don't have to do it in an obvious way. So what I mean by that is, if you look at my mood board with the Amazon, or just take, for example, for this design, I've said this was inspired by the parrot. It would be tempting to just draw a picture of a parrot and plonk it on top of the cake. And that might be a good design, but it's a very obvious design, and it's not necessarily a more mature way of designing. The other thing to bear in mind here is that the main process we want to demonstrate on this particular cake design is using butter icing, buttercream, and piping where possible. As tempted as you might be to use fondant icing on this task, try and hold off because we're going to be exploring that in a lot of detail next term. You can also adjust your design as you go. It might be that you think of adding extra bits, or you want to remove something, and if you've already drawn it on, please don't feel like you have to cross out your idea and start again. You can just adjust your design or make a note next to it. So this is how watercolour pencils work. You can draw with them or colour in as a standard pencil, but then if you just use plain water on them, it helps you to blend and spread the colours out. So I find it a really quick way of designing, much quicker than using watercolour paints. Another really important aspect of your design work is your annotation. You did hear me just say then you could make a note of this on your design. Well, that's effectively what annotation is. It's you writing down your thought processes. So I understand what it was you were thinking when you were coming up with this design idea, and it can also act as a reminder. So when you're thinking about using certain materials, ingredients or pieces of equipment, you can jot them down and explain that on your design idea, so that when you come to actually coming back to it and making it, you can recall how you had planned to do it. Now you remember I said that you can adjust your design within your design. So as I was colouring in here, I suddenly thought actually I wanted to do some piping work on this cake. So I'm doing what's called a thumbnail here. So this is taking a close-up of a particular feature of the cake, and in the same way that I had piping on my galaxy cake, I'm going to do it on this jungle themed cake with just standard green icing, and then place the mango pieces on top of that rather than just put on top of the cake. So this was an afterthought as I was drawing it. It came to me later on, so rather than start the whole drawing again, I've just added in an additional thumbnail to explain that. And here I'm just adding my annotation. Now, if you're worried about ruining your design idea because you don't like your handwriting, or you're worried about making a mistake, you could upload a photo of your design onto your photo gallery and then add your annotation by typing it in. So you'll recall from the photo gallery tutorial that we suggest that you use something like PowerPoint, which would allow you to do this. You can put your photo onto a slide and then type in your annotation around it to improve your presentation even more. So you can see I've referenced what my theme and my idea was, so where my inspiration came from this design. I'm then talking about what coloured butter icing, the fact that I'm using butter icing. I've said I'd spread it on using a palette knife, so I'm referencing the particular pieces of equipment I'd need as well, and then highlighting the additional pieces or ingredients that I'd be using for this cake. So the chocolate fingers, also explaining that they represent trees. It might not be immediately obvious to someone, but when it's pointed out, it makes sense. And you can justify as well, so you can say why you're choosing to use these ingredients or why you're choosing to use that process. So I've said chocolate fingers represent the trees. It also adds extra texture and flavour to the cake. So this gives a good justification for using that as an additional ingredient. And then finally, once my page is dry, I like to go over with a fine liner, just drawing over the outline to make my picture really stand out and improve the presentation a little bit more. This isn't something you have to do, this is just something I've developed as a skill with my design ideas. So there's my finished first design. Remember, you've been asked to create at least 3 design ideas, and it's important to show variation with your ideas. Try to make them quite different from one another. So as you can see in my design 2, I've looked at a butterfly for my inspiration, and in this one I'm merging 2 colours together and blending them, and then I've looked at how I could create butterflies, perhaps edible ones, and use wire so that it really creates another dimension to the cake. And then finally, this cake has been inspired by a leopard. Now it looks a little bit more simplistic, but there is another technique within this cake design. So I've looked at the colours of the leopard and the spots and decided to create a yellow base using the smoothed icing, and then drip melted chocolate around the edge, and then use chocolate sprinkles to represent the spots on the top. So there we have 3 quite different designs that show good variation, different techniques and different uses of additional ingredients. Remember, there's a wide range of different ways that you can add decoration to your cake, so as well as thinking back to what you've learnt previously, you could do additional research to find out about more. If you do this, make sure that you include this as additional evidence within your photo gallery, because this is another really good skill to develop. Now it's your turn to complete your initial ideas. Have fun with it, try and be as creative as possible, think about different ways you can decorate the cakes and try and show as much variation as possible.